Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on liability and insurance coverage. I am very excited to have you all here today. My name is Josette Lobo. I'm the Professional Development Coordinator at CMC Canada, and I will be your co-host for this session today. Before we dive into our topic, I would like to introduce our speakers. Joining us today are Tara Scullion. She's a director at BMS Canada, and we also have Brent Cartwright, portfolio manager at BMS Canada as well. Both of our speakers bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in the insurance and liability field, and I'm sure you will find their insights incredibly valuable. I will also like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available for free in our store after the session, so you will have the opportunity to revisit the material at your convenience. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. However, the Q&A function is available for the duration for the entirety of the webinar. So please feel free to pose your questions at any time. We will address them during the Q&A. Thank you very much for joining us today, and once again, welcome. And without further ado, let's get back to Tara and Brent. Guys, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules and your lunch to join us to talk about risk and liability for management consultants. So Brent and I are both registered insurance brokers with BMS Canada Risk Services, and we've been the proud partner of CMC-Canada now for the past several years to deliver your member liability insurance program, which we will chat a bit more on today and how that policy is designed to protect you for the work that you do as a management consultant. So before we jump kind of right into the session, we wanted to take a bit of time to provide a bit of background on BMS in case we haven't had the pleasure of connecting with you yet directly. So we're a bit of a specialty brokerage in that we work primarily with associations to deliver specialized coverage and risk management resources to over 500,000 professionals across Canada. So that's done through about 70 different national and provincial associations. CMC-Canada. We have a team of brokers. We're located primarily in Ottawa, Ontario. Like Josette mentioned, Brent is the portfolio manager for the program. He's here in Ottawa, and we have a team of brokers that manage kind of the CMC Canada account. So we are available to help you through a variety of channels, including a dedicated phone line and an email address, which will ensure to share at the end of today. Think of after the fact, please do not hesitate to give our team a call, and we're happy to help. So today we're going to provide an overview on what exactly is errors and admissions insurance. So we'll go through what exactly that coverage is and why it's so important that you carry an errors and admissions policy for the work that you do as a management consultant. We'll take a look specifically at the insurance offered through the CMC Canada program, and we'll go through some kind of key coverage highlights that you should be aware of if you are already insured with us, or perhaps if you are looking at options that may be out there through other carriers, wanting to make sure you are getting apples to apples coverage. So we'll make sure to go through some key highlights. We'll also go through some case studies and some different situations in which a management consultant could potentially find themselves in so that you can relate the coverage available to you to real life practice circumstances. Then we'll finish off the session today. Brent will go through some of the additional insurance products that you have access to as a member of CMC Canada and who they would be recommended for, depending on what your kind of unique business structure is. So over the past few years, the program has grown, which is amazing. And one of the many benefits of being part of a group program like this through your association is access to specialized support, including for legal defense and claims handling. So Each year, members have access to a free telephone legal hotline. So it's a pro bono legal advice line that's available to you if you participate in the member program. And that's through the law firm's Gowlings. So they're a national law firm. They have offices across Canada, and they're really specialized in what they do. They defend professionals against kind of professional negligent claims. So they have a pro bono legal advice line that you can call at any point throughout the policy term if you wanted to speak to a lawyer to get some generalized advice about professional liability. So not if there's been a claim, but if perhaps you have some concerns maybe about a potential conflict of interest and you want to speak to a lawyer, you can give that pro bono legal advice line a call and they can provide you with some guidance. We'll make sure at some point in the session, we do have a slide with their phone number on it so that you can take that down as well. Perfect. So as a management consultant, you are likely watching today's session and you're working in a variety of settings. Maybe you're watching this today and you are an employee at a firm, so you have an employer, or maybe you have your own corporation, you're an independent contractor and you contract out your services, or perhaps you own your own business and you lease or own an office space. Maybe you employ your own staff and you yourself engage with contractors. So with these different kind of business structures and these different business circumstances, there are additional products in addition to the errors and omissions insurance that we'll chat about today that you have access to as a member of CMC Canada. It's listed, those products are listed on that last bullet point there. I won't go through them right now in great detail. Brent will spend a bit more time going through all of those additional products, but just wanted to list them on the slide. We have a really simple and easy to use online application. Maybe some of you have already gone through that. So it's an online application where you can get a quote within minutes. So it asks you some pretty basic information, your name, your business, your revenue, things like that. And it will give you a quote right away. There's the option if you want, there's a button to speak with a broker. So a broker can call you after you get that quote to answer any questions that you have. If everything looks good, you can actually pay online and then get all your policy documents right away. And we'll make sure to share kind of the website and that application as well today. Perfect. So what exactly is errors and omissions insurance and why is it so important? The reason why coverage is so important is because you can be found legally responsible for professional kind of acts, errors, or negligent acts associated with the services and the work that you deliver as a management consultant. So if your advice causes or is even alleged to cause a client to suffer financial loss, you could be found liable for that. And be required to provide some sort of financial compensation. And what an errors and omissions policy is designed to cover is your legal defense costs. So for you to be able to hire your own lawyer and defend yourself against the allegations. So it would pay for your legal bills, your hourly legal fees, the cost if you had to hire an expert witness, for example, any settlement or judgment costs that, again, if you were to be found liable and be required by the courts to pay the client, that is all something that you can submit under an errors and omissions policy. We'll go through a number of kind of claims circumstances with you today, again, so that you can relate the coverage that you have access to. But before doing that, also wanted to just spend a bit of time going through some of the unique risks that management consultants face just due to the nature of the work that you provide, which is, as we all know, you're providing expert advice, recommendations, solutions to clients across various industries. So there's risks associated with kind of professional liability. You are hired for your expertise, and clients obviously expect for accurate and effective advice. So if your recommendations lead to financial loss or damages to a client, that's where we could see allegations of professional negligence. So this could be errors in strategic planning, organizational restructuring, operational improvements. There's also risks associated with the information that you potentially have access to. So as a consultant, you could or likely have access to sensitive and proprietary information about your clients' businesses. So things like financial data and strategic plans. So if there was some sort of breach, whether that be accidental and just sending an email to the incorrect recipient, again, this could lead to potential legal disputes. There's also the failure to meet client expectations. So again, clients are engaging with consultants for kind of specific expectations of how they feel the outcome of the project should go. So if there is a failure to deliver kind of promised results or meet deadlines, this again can lead to dissatisfaction and potential legal claims for breach of contract or kind of failure to perform. And then the last kind of bullet point on your slide there is again, pretty general, but miscommunication and misunderstanding, things happen. Effective communication is essential in a consulting project so that clients' expectations are aligned, but miscommunication can happen and that can interrupt kind of the project scope or goals and impact the overall success of a project. So you can see in this case study, let's say you have been hired by a large hospital to help modernize and digitalize their online record keeping system. The scope of the work was not properly categorized, which led to substantial delays and additional costs. And the client sues you alleging that they did not fully investigate, sorry, that you did not fully investigate and made plans with unrealistic assumptions. So if you had an errors and omissions policy, that would provide you coverage for your legal defense costs. So for you to be able to hire a lawyer and defend yourself against the allegations that have been made against you. And then also would provide coverage for any settlement or damages. So if throughout the courts process, you are found to be liable and you are required to pay some sort of settlement to the client, this is also something that you can submit under an errors and omissions policy. In this example here, let's say you were hired by a local retailer to improve their inventory management processes to reduce costs and optimize inventory levels. You conducted a cursory analysis of the client's inventory data without fully understanding the underlying trends and patterns. As a result, your recommendations were not based on robust data insights, leading to suboptimal solutions. So the client then sued you, alleging that they experienced kind of minimal improvements in inventory management processes and did not achieve the desired cost savings. So again, similar to the last example, if you were involved in a circumstance like this, you could submit that under an errors and omissions policy for your legal defense costs associated with hiring a lawyer, and then also any settlement or damages that could be awarded. So in those two examples, let's say that the management consultant did not have an errors and omissions policy. So this exposes them to significant risks. The first one's pretty obvious. There's obviously going to be some financial liability there. So without an errors and omissions policy, you would be personally liable for kind of legal defense costs, settlements, or judgments. And these costs can escalate quickly. And this can obviously lead to kind of financial strain and burden on kind of you and your business. There's also consequences associated with business reputation damage. So this can damage your credibility in the industry, and kind of negative publicity could potentially deter clients from hiring a consultant. Point three is pretty similar to point two. It's the loss of clients and business opportunities. Clients may choose to terminate contracts or avoid entering into agreements with consultants who do not carry an errors and omissions policy out of fear of themselves having some sort of financial risk associated with an errors and omissions type claim. There's also personal assets that could be at risk. If your business is structured in such a way where it's a sole proprietorship or a partnership, your personal assets could potentially be at risk if you cannot cover kind of the legal costs and damages. And then lastly, it's a time commitment having a claim. It's understandably a very stressful circumstance when you're being sued. And it takes a lot of time to manage that. When you have an errors and omissions policy there, that's where you have support from your broker, BMS, or whoever you're with to provide some guidance and expertise. You'd also be assigned an adjuster, and that would really be your point of contact for any questions that you have. So an adjuster would assign you legal counsel, make sure the claim is on track and that you're meeting any kind of deadlines. So there's that peace of mind that the claim is being managed when you have an errors and omissions type policy. So before I pass it off to my colleague Brent, just wanted to go through some kind of key coverage highlights of what is included under the errors and omissions insurance that's offered through the CMC Canada program. So this is essentially to act almost like a checklist to make sure that if you have coverage elsewhere or you're looking at coverage elsewhere, it's important to make sure that you do have certain elements of coverage included. At any point too, we're happy to do a policy comparison. As a broker, we do that often. So we're happy to review coverage that you have in place elsewhere and provide a quote just to make sure that you're getting kind of comparable and comprehensive coverage. So the CMC Canada policy has flexible limit options. So this, you can get as low as a $1 million limit all the way up to a $5 million limit per claim. And so that limit would ultimately be the most that the insurance company would pay out for kind of those legal defense costs and settlements. So again, there's a flexibility there of how much insurance you essentially want to get. We also know that your work as a consultant isn't necessarily restricted to Canada. So the CMC policy extends to cover your services that you deliver worldwide, excluding the US. So you can provide your services worldwide. The policy would respond to claims brought forward worldwide, excluding the US. Just wanted to note that as well. There's also a number of kind of policy add-ons that are included within the errors and omissions policy. So there's coverage for what we call disciplinary legal expense. So this would be for complaints that could be made against you to a professional organization like CMC Canada. So CMC Canada has kind of codes of ethics that you as a management consultant need to abide to. And this is an area where someone could make a complaint against you, could be a client, could be a colleague. So the errors and omissions policy does include coverage for those types of claims. It also includes coverage for things like libel and slander. So if you were being accused for defamation or disparagement of someone's character. And then lastly, the policy automatically includes $250,000 limit for network security and privacy liability event costs. So this is really key as an ever increasing number of professionals, not specific to management consultants, are using technology to communicate with their clients and deliver services. So the CMC Canada errors and omissions policy does include an element of that coverage. Brent will chat a bit more later on in the presentation. We do offer a standalone cyber policy that offers a $1 million limit, and Brent will go through that as well. Another important element to highlight is that the policy is written on what we call a claims made policy form. So this means the policy is triggered when a claim is made against you during the policy period, regardless of when the wrongful act or incident that gave rise to the claim took place. So let's say, for example, you receive a letter today indicating that you're being sued. You would report that under the policy you have in place right now, regardless if it's stemming from services that you delivered several years ago. If there was a retroactive date on your errors and omissions policy, the wrongful act or services that gave rise to a claim would have to have taken place on or after the retroactive date in order for coverage to respond. But you'll note on the slide here that the CMC-Canada policy does not have a retroactive date. So this means it would respond to claims arising from services that you delivered kind of before the inception date of your policy. And then there's also a number of other kind of key features. We've already chatted about that pro bono legal hotline through Gallings. You have kind of specialist broker support from us at BMS, and it's kind of association endorsed by CMC Canada. So I'll pass it off now to my colleague Brent, who will go through some of the kind of claims reporting procedures if you do ever have a claim, and some of the additional insurance products that we offer.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. So yeah, like Tara said, I'm just going to go over a couple more points here on the E&O side, and then I'll jump into the other products that we can offer. So Tara went through a number of different examples and kind of details on the coverage, but at the end of the day, you need to know, it's important to know what to do in the event of a claim. So if there was a complaint made against you. So just a brief kind of overview on what you should do. So the first and foremost is you'd want to report any potential or actual claim to the insurer directly. So the email is up here on the slide, but you'll also find it on any certificate that you receive, regardless of what type of coverage. So whether it's the E&O or the additional policies that we'll get into, it should always state on the certificate who to contact in the event of a complaint. And then it's key to, the key kind of word here is potential or actual. So even if there isn't a formal complaint that's made, but there was an incident, you think something could arise from it, it's important to report that as well. Obviously, if something were to come from that, even in a few months, and then it's always best to have had that reported on file as soon as possible. And you won't see any sort of consequence or negative effect for reporting a potential incident. It's really just best to note things on file as soon as possible. And then in terms of what to do on your own end, so you'd want to formally document the incident, including details of those involved. As you may or may not know, some of these can take a long time. They can be a long process, so it's important to document everything relating to the incident from the start, so that you have everything kind of formally written down in terms of timelines and what exactly occurred. And then, of course, submitting any formal statement of claim. So if you do receive an actual notice, you can provide that actual copy itself directly to the insurer. This will be key for them to be able to assist in the defense of this claim. And then lastly, again, kind of just reporting any investigation. So kind of anything relating to any sort of incident, whether it was official, just allegations, or even just something occurred that you're unsure, definitely report it. Now, through CMC with the E&O, you do have access to a couple different services that can help you with this entire process. So it's important to know you aren't on your own in this type of incident. There's various channels to access for guidance. So first one is the pro bono legal hotline, which I believe Tara did briefly mention earlier, but essentially through the E&O coverage, you have access to a pro bono legal hotline through Gowling WLG. So they're a law firm. Essentially, you can give them a call relating to an incident, and they can provide you with some guidance, let you know what you should do, let you know how to respond, kind of things of that nature. So this can be relating to privacy and confidentiality incidents, conflicts of interest, how to respond to requests for information from third parties. So anything along those lines when it comes to just looking for some legal guidance, you can give them a call and they can assist. And then, of course, us here at BMS, we as the insurance broker, we're happy to help in any way we can. So if ever you do have an incident and you're not sure how to report it or who to report to, you can always contact us and we can help guide you in the right way. And then we're also here to provide the insurance expertise that you may need. So we're happy to go through an overview of your business and advise on coverages that you may be missing, things that we may recommend, or any changes that you need to make throughout the year. So really anything relating to your insurance policy, you can certainly give us a call or send us an email anytime, and we're always happy to help as well. So I'm going to go into some of the additional insurance products that are available to you through the CMC Canada program. So Tara touched the E&O and went through that in detail, which would certainly be the primary component of the coverage. That's the policy that essentially every single person would want. But there are a number of additional products. So we'll go through exactly what those are and who we would recommend them to. So the first policy is commercial general liability insurance. So this is coverage for third-party bodily injury and property damage. So for example, if a client were to slip and fall in your office, they fell, they break their arm, and then they wanted to pursue you or the business for those damages, it can cover the legal cost to defend yourself as well as settlement costs in the event that there is one. And then also third-party property damage. So if you were to go to a client's home or if you were to go to a client's office and you damaged their property and they wanted to hold you liable for that damage, the commercial general liability covers you for that sort of incident. So just a few highlights here on the general liability. So what we see quite frequently with management consultants is you may be working under contract for one of your clients, and we often see that they require you to have specific insurance. And oftentimes we see the general liability. And not only that, there could be specific limits, there could be specific items within the general liability that you need to have. You got to be careful when you're looking at your contracts to make sure that you do have adequate coverage in place. And again, that's where we here at BMS can come in and help. If you do receive a contract, they have 2 pages of insurance that you need to have, and you're not sure exactly what it means, you can send that to us. We can make sure that you have everything that you need. So on that note, similar to the E&O, we have flexible limit options. We can do starting at 1 million, again, up to 5 million. And we do that because we do see various contracts where you may be required to hold 2 million or 3 million or 5 million. So we do see where you're contractually required to have a certain limit. So for that reason, we have multiple different limit options for you. And then these are just a few key things that are included within a commercial general liability policy, which do tend to be fairly standard. So products and completed operations, personal injury and advertising liability, that can cover you for, if you were to do some advertising and someone were to pursue you for that advertisement, alleging that it was slandering their business or something along those lines, and they pursued you for that, it could cover that. Medical payments, so again, this relates to the bodily injury, for example, that client that slipped and fell, they now want you to pay their medical payments. It can cover that cost as well. And the tenant's legal liability covers you in the event you cause property damage to the building in which you're a tenant. So if you're renting an office space for your business and you damage the building itself and the landlord were to pursue you for damages, tenant's legal liability would cover you for that sort of thing. So general liability is recommended for any business owner, certainly, particularly if you're renting an office space, then you would absolutely, if anything, you likely require it in your lease, but if not, you would still definitely want to hold that. Also, any independent contractor, if you're working independently and you're working for different businesses or you're working one-on-one with clients, really essentially anyone aside from an employee working for a business who would likely be covered through the business's general liability, anyone outside of that would likely want to hold their own policy. And again, as I said before, we do see quite frequently that you're actually required to hold it as part of some of the contracts you may be working on. Now we go into property insurance. This is more common. I'm sure you're all familiar with this to some degree, but essentially this is just to cover the physical property. So if you are again renting an office space and you have furniture, equipment, office, desks, chairs, computers, as well as any improvements and betterments, this can cover those sort of items in the event there's a fire and all of your items are damaged. And one key thing to note on this coverage is, again, we often see if you are leasing an office space, we do frequently see that it's required as part of your lease to hold this coverage. And one thing we see from time to time is you're renting an office space, but all you have is a laptop and a desk, and you kind of figure it's not worth that much. It's not really worth getting a policy. But you could see in your rental agreement that you're actually you're liable for essentially everything in the unit, all previous leaseholder improvements. So if you're just renting a newly renovated condo unit, you could be liable to replace the flooring, the walls, kind of everything from the studs in the event there was a fire. So we do see that from time to time in lease agreements. So just something to keep in mind if you are renting an office space, just to double check to make sure that this isn't a coverage that you need. But if it is, we can certainly provide this sort of coverage as well. Now, this would be in particular for items relating to the business. It wouldn't be like a home, your residential kind of content. It's obviously relating to the business. But certainly, and then also a key thing included in there is business interruption. So if there were to be a fire which caused damage to all of your equipment, you can no longer work for a couple weeks while everything gets replaced. It can cover the income that was lost during that time as well. So now we'll get into the cyber risk and liability. So as Tara went through earlier, there is an element of coverage included in the errors and omissions policy. So you do have some level of coverage automatically. Now we do, seeing as cyber has really become a more and more common incident, a more and more common threat, the cyber attacks are more and more sophisticated. We do offer a standalone cyber policy that has a more extensive coverage and a higher limit. So I'll just read you this quick note here. So cybercrime is a major problem for Canadian small to medium businesses. A September report by the Insurance Bureau of Canada found that 1 in 5 had been affected by a cyber attack or data breach in the previous 2 years. About 44% said they had no defenses, while 37% estimated that incidents cost them more than $100,000. Nearly 2/3 said they had no insurance to help recover. So just like I said, it's becoming more and more common that we're seeing this type of incident. So we wanted to offer a policy in addition to what you would already have through the errors and omissions. That's just a higher limit and more broad of coverage. So now just for an example for the cybersecurity, again, I'm sure many of you have seen these types of emails or gotten different phone calls or different things that are fraudulent. If you receive a fraudulent email, you click on a link and it activates some sort of malware to your computer. The cyber policy can cover a wide variety of costs relating to that sort of incident. And then just a few things included in the cyber coverage. So the difference here is it is a 1 million aggregate limit. Again, the errors and omissions does have a certain component of cyber coverage, but this policy is a 1 million, which is significantly higher. And it can cost a wide variety of things relating to this sort of breach. So, for example, it can cover costs involved with a regulatory proceeding relating to the violation of a privacy law. There is coverage for business interruption, so similar to the property, but if this business interruption is caused by a privacy breach, so again, your system's hacked, all your data is lost, you now need to close the business for a week while you recover the data and get your system sorted out, it can cover the income that was lost during that time. There's also coverage for cyber extortion, which again, we're seeing more and more frequently, which would be, for example, if a cyber attacker were to essentially take access of your computer and freeze everything. So essentially you're unable to operate and they indicate you need to pay us X amount and then we'll kind of release your computer back to you. So there is coverage for that sort of attack as well. And then we see third-party liability for privacy breaches and first-party data protection. So again, relating more to the actual breach of privacy. So your client's information is lost, and then you need to notify all your clients that there was a breach, and then if one of them opted to pursue the business for that incident, it could cover that sort of circumstance. Next, we're going to go into employment practices liability. So this coverage would only be recommended for business owners, and particularly those who have staff. Now, whether it be administrative or other professionals, whether they're employees or even contractors, students, anything along those lines, if you're a business owner with staff, employment practices liability would be recommended. So this covers the business owner and the business itself in the event of a claim made by its staff. So this could be for a wide variety of things, such as wrongful termination, workplace harassment, discrimination, things along those lines. And similar to the other policies, this could cover the cost to defend the business against those allegations, and then also cover potential settlement costs if it does come to that. So just a little example for the employment practices liability. So as a result of ongoing performance issues, you make the difficult decision to terminate one of your employees. Your former employee alleges that her termination was due to her age and is suing your business for lost wages and damages related to loss of dignity. So again, this policy would come into play to cover the legal defense costs with these allegations, and then it could cover the damages awarded and settlement costs. So the last product we're going to get into is the legal services options. So there are two kind of main different components to this. So we work with a legal partner named ARAG, and they're a legal firm, and there's two different kind of components to this coverage. So first is the legal services package. This is the smaller package that essentially grants you access to a legal hotline. Now, similar to previously where I spoke about the pro bono line through Gowlings, that is for specifically relating to potential incidents, potential claims, things along those lines. Whereas this option is an add-on that you can select that provides with an unlimited legal hotline. So you can call as many times as you'd like, and it's for really any topic. It doesn't need to be related to a potential claim or a complaint. It can be for really any topic. It can even be for questions for things in your personal life as well. It doesn't need to be relating to your management consulting. It can be really kind of any topic. And then it also gets you access to a legal documentation, legal document library. So they have a number of different legal documents you can use. They have some templates as well, where you can just kind of fill in the blanks. And I believe, for example, they would have like employment contracts and things along those lines, where you can use that as a reference to create your own documents. And a few other services that are included: document review, emotional support, ID theft, and so on. Now, in addition to that, we also offer the legal expense insurance. So the main difference here being this is an actual insurance policy you could add for legal expenses. And there is a personal and a business option. So again, like Tara mentioned, we have an online application that has all of these products. So as you go through it, you'll see each of these options. But the legal expense insurance provides you with insurance policy to cover legal costs you could have in your personal and or business life relating to those 6 items that are listed there on the slide. So they're really for things that are kind of outside of your actual services as a management consultant. Like Tara mentioned, the errors and omissions is there. That's going to cover legal costs you could have if there's a complaint made based on the services you delivered. The general liability is in place to cover you if there were a slip and fall. This is for miscellaneous circumstances that could arise. So for example, there is bodily injury. Now, a key difference here being this could be pursuit for bodily injury. So if you were to slip and fall, even let's say at a restaurant in your personal life, and you wanted to pursue that third party for damages, it could cover legal costs associated with that. We also see driver's license protection. So if you lost your license and you wanted to challenge that, or you wanted to dispute that, it could cover legal costs so that you can hire a lawyer and you can defend yourself against that. So it's kind of for those circumstances, again, that are unrelated to your management consulting, but you could obviously see legal costs in your personal life or even for the business that isn't actually directly related to the services you're providing. So those are all the products that we offer. So that is the end of the presentation. So we thank everyone for joining. We've put our contact information here. Like we've said, numerous times throughout the presentation. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. If you have questions on, if you have a policy with us and you want to make sure that you're not missing anything, or if you don't have coverage, and you're curious about some of the policies we chatted about today, feel free to reach out anytime with any questions. And we also put the website up there. There is a specific link for the CMC-Canada program where you can find some more information. You can find some brochures. And then there's also, of course, that online application where you can apply directly and get a quote.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much to both of you, Brent, Tara. Thank you for all the information, different insurance options our members can access with BMS. I'm pretty sure it will be helpful for our members to know that. I think we can now open the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will read them out loud, and our speakers today will be able to respond to them. So far, we have one question from Taras Noas. Why is the U.S. excluded, and how can a consultant protect themselves south of the border?
Yeah, so you're able to deliver your services anywhere in the world, and it would defend against claims brought forward anywhere in the world, excluding the US. So if a claim were to be made against you in the US, the policy does not extend to cover that. If you are doing services entirely in the US, please let us know. Give us a call, send us an email. We can work with you and the insurer to see if this is something that they're able to accommodate. It is really situational based. So if 100% of your services are in the US, it may be a better fit for you to get a policy in the US for that. So it really just depends on your specific circumstance. I would suggest giving us a call or sending us an email to chat through what exactly you're doing, and we're certainly able to see if we're able to help.
All right, thank you, Tara. I don't see any more questions so far.
I know it's a lot of information at once,
Yes.
so feel free, if you think of something tonight or tomorrow, give us a call, send us an email.
Yes, and we will also be sending a post-event email with some resources, links, and information, contact information of both CMC Canada as well as BMS, in case it is needed. So stay tuned for that. But we still have a couple more minutes for any questions. So feel free to put them in the Q&A function. Okay, we have one. Are there any limitations, if any, on what is actually covered or insured?
Sorry, do you mind repeating that, Gisette?
Sure. Are there any limitations, if any, on what is actually covered or insured?
So if you're referring to the professional liability, there are any professional liability policy would have exclusions on it. They're pretty standard, so it's mostly surrounding like intentional acts. So if you intentionally did something fraudulent or did something malicious or criminal, things like that are typically excluded under an errors and omissions policy. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but if you are insured with us, give us a call. We can kind of go through what all of those exclusions would be if there are any.
Yeah, I'll just add to that real quick too. The policy is also intended for management consulting services. So one thing that could be, excluded or not covered would be if you're also doing a separate profession that's unrelated to management consulting. It's likely that your errors and omissions through the CMC-Canada program won't pick up a claim relating to that because it is specific for management consulting. So if you're doing management consulting, but you're also doing, X, Y, and Z, again, like we've noted, let us know, and we can either look at putting in a separate policy for those services, or seeing if your current policy does extend to that, but just something else to keep in mind.
That's a good point, Brett.
Right. I think we don't have any more questions from the public today. So I think we can wrap up. So yeah, thank you very much to both of you, Tara, Brent, for taking the time to share those valuable information with our members. I want to remind everyone that the webinar is being recorded and will be available in our store. Again, the link to it, you will find it in the email post event that we will be sending to all of you. Thank you very much for your participation today, and we hope that this session has been engaging and valuable to you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Have a great day and see you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.